Welcome to the Business Nexus podcast. I'm Scott Fisher. Today's feature is presented in partnership with RFG Electrical Contracting. You know, it's 2026 and we're still having the same conversation about what a successful career looks like. We tell every kid to go get a degree, take on the debt, and find a desk. But if you look at the world around us, the people actually building and powering our lives are the ones we should be watching. Today's guest is a perfect example of that. He's been in the electrical game for over 3 decades. He didn't just climb a ladder, he built the company that owns the ladder. From a side gig back in the 90s to a major player wiring hospitals and massive residential hubs, he's seen the industry's best and worst days. I'm thrilled to have the president of RFG Electrical Contracting here, Rich Galante. Thanks for stopping by.
No worries, Scott. Good morning.
Rich, it's great to have you. I was looking at your track record. You've been doing this since 1989. That's a hell of a run. But what fascinates me is the jump from 98. You started RFG as a side business. Most people start a side hustle and it stays a hobby forever. Then at what point did you realize, okay, I'm not just an electrician anymore, I'm actually running a company?
So I'm still trying to figure that out, to be honest with you, 30 something years later. I was doing, like I said, I was doing it on the side and working out of my house and had a couple guys working for me on the side. And we were just so busy. I was on my regular job and taking phone calls and, fielding clients. And you couldn't do it all at one time. So I said, you know what, let me take the time and let me pursue it permanently. I took a leave of absence and just never went back.
Wow. So now when you got things going on your own, was there a specific project, maybe like, I don't know, something silly like a ceiling fan that turned into a whole house that made you realize, wait a minute, I need to build up my team to the point where you're at now?
Yeah, so in the beginning, we were doing small stuff, like I said, ceiling fans, outlet changes, nothing crazy, maybe a service upgrade. And then we started doing a little more, some renovations of homes and stuff like that. I ended up meeting one of my clients, one of my very first clients who's still a client today. And we were doing homes for him. He was doing single family homes. Then we started doing we were doing a housing development. It was small condominium complex, maybe 13, 18 units. I think that was in the early 90s. And like I said, I just did a house for him 2 weeks ago. We're still working for the same guy.
Okay. Well, shifting gears just a little bit here, I have to ask you about something that's been bugging me. There's this stigma about blue collar work, like it's a plan B if college doesn't work out. But I've heard some numbers lately that would make a software engineer jealous, to be quite honest. I mean, we're talking entry-level guys making 60 grand and veteran city electricians clearing like 200,000 on a 35-hour week. So, Rich, is that the real reality on the ground right now?
It really is. So we're a union contractor. We're part of United Service Workers Local 363, and our entry level first year helper walks in the door getting $17.50 an hour, plus full benefits, plus medical, plus dental, retirement, and 401k. His package cost me $60,000 a year for one guy who knows nothing about, doesn't know how to wire a switch, doesn't know what a wire nut is or an outlet, and he's just green and learning. And then I work with a city company also. I'm a consultant for a very large city company that does transit work, and our guys get $200,000 a year on a 35-hour.
Wow. So now, if the money's that good, why are we still struggling with the labor shortage?
It's hard. They're still pushing kids through college. I mean, we took the trades out of schools. I know some schools are starting to bring them back, which is awesome. A bunch of years ago, once they started taking trades out of the high school classroom, some private men started their own schools, got certified with New York State, like a kind of like a BOCES. BOCES does a thing here on Long Island. They have some private schools that do it, and they teach the kids. But we're not pushing the kids in that right way. I don't know if it's right out of high school where they're too involved in sports, or if we're saying, you got to be a doctor, lawyer, teacher, whatever. I don't know. I don't know why, but we need to get more kids into the trades.
Yeah, I mean, people say trades are unskilled, but you're talking about, like 10 years of training. So why don't we treat that like a doctorate?
I think a lot of things is that the student or the employee needs to get with the right company. There's a lot of guys like in any trade or any industry, some people don't care. You got teachers that are awesome. You got teachers that aren't that great. You have, electrical contractors that are fly by night, and then you get guys that care. If you could land with the right company, they'll get you into an apprenticeship program. And apprenticeship programs are 5 years of learning. And it's not just, I mean, you're in school a couple of days a week, you're doing algebra, you're doing math, you're doing all kinds of studies, you're getting a degree there. Plus you're getting your field experience, your 40 hours a week doing field experience. So you're learning for 5 years. And that's just to become a journeyman. Once you become a journeyman, like, a full-fledged electrician, then you can go on for another 2 years of trade experience, go back to school and get your certified master certificate and become a licensed electrician.
Right. So that's what I wanted to ask you about. So, these kids are kids, who knows what age they are, to be honest with you. But these guys and gals are starting with you at 59K, let's just say. So the gold medal for them, for most of them, is it just that journeyman card, or are you kind of pushing them and nudging them to get their master electrician license so maybe they can eventually run their own crews?
So in the 26, 27 years I've been in business, I've come across a ton of men and women that have been in the trades with me, and some of them are just content. They don't have that drive or that motivation to get to the next level, which is a shame. They're just content coming in, doing their 35, 40 hours a week. They want to go home and do what they do and enjoy their weekends. They don't want to work the overtime. Then there's guys that I've had come through and they've gone on to become master electricians. I have a guy that's next town over, worked for me for a bunch of years, got his license, and we farm out some of the work. We give him some of the overflow that we have or the smaller projects we don't do. And it's all about motivation and drive.
Yeah, yeah. Not everybody has that. Everybody's a little bit different. You come across that in all fields, in all paths. You have the go-getters and the people that, no, I just want to do the bare minimum and collect my paycheck and go home for the day. But let me ask you this then, as far as the schooling goes, how much of the schooling now is still, I don't know, old school, pipe bending versus learning things like smart building automation and PLC? How has that changed?
So it goes right at, well, the first year is basically a lot of book stuff, a lot of theory, a lot of code, a lot of knowledge like that. And then the second, third, fourth, fifth years, they bring you into commercial, doing, like you had mentioned, some conduit bending, some residential wiring, and so forth. They're starting to do more of this, working with the AI, worried about, what's coming up next is the big AI builds that are going to be, a lot of that's going to be down south in the Carolinas and such, building those kind of buildings and such.
You mean the data centers?
Data centers. There's a lot of low voltage facilities. Like everything now is energy management systems. Like these big commercial buildings back in the day, everything was hardwired, line voltage right from the panel to the switch to the outlet or to the light. Now there's all low voltage because they want to be able to monitor and control the time and the energy management to make sure that they're not, people don't leave the lights on in the office. They come on and go off at certain times, stuff like that. So there's a lot of low voltage that's involved today as well.
Okay. So now let's talk shop for a second here. So I can't imagine trying to bid a job right now. You give a price today, but the project doesn't start for like a year or more, right? And the price of materials is bouncing all around like the stock market. Lead times on parts are insane. Copper and aluminum have been a roller coaster. So are you writing escalation clauses into your contracts now, or are you just having to buy ahead and store the stuff, store the wire and so forth in your warehouse to lock in the price?
So it's a little bit of everything. I mean, we try and put that escalation clause in the contract. A lot of the bigger, larger builders won't accept it. They're like, look, this is your number. That's all there is to it. We joke around in the office sometimes. We're doing jobs that we bid in 2022 and 2023. We're still on. A couple of projects we were supposed to start that are delayed. And what we do is our suppliers, some of them will hold prices on certain items, like the big ticket items, like the switchgear, the panels, the meter banks. They'll hold it for a certain amount of time, which is good. Because we've been dealing with the same suppliers and we're lucky we have a great relationship with them. Sometimes they'll put them on the shelf for us so we don't have to buy them. Other times we do need to eat that cost, so we try and get a deposit from the contractor to store that material, but it's not always feasible. They don't always do that. So it's a gamble.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you just mentioned switchgear. So when you're talking about things like switchgear, transformers, is there still like a huge 40-week lead time on those? Because if there is, I can't help me understand, how do you keep a project on schedule when what's considered basically, the brains of the building, so to speak, are stuck on a shipping container somewhere?
Right. The scheduling is one of the hardest part of the projects of this industry, in my opinion. We try and schedule the jobs and manpower and material orders, and it's just a rolling thing. It's never consistent. Like you said, we order materials around COVID when there was a shortage. We would order stuff, and like you said, it would be 40 weeks, 52 weeks, working weeks. It would be we wouldn't see the material for a year. Recently, we just placed an order. It showed up in 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
we don't know what the hell's going on. So we do our best. We try and let the client know, look, this is a long lead time item. We give them your estimate, and we say in the estimate, okay, here's a separate number just to buy your equipment. Like you can buy your switchgear, pay us for it. We'll get the switchgear, and you're not awarding us the contract yet, but at least we have the switchgear ordered. And if we get the job, you're in good shape. If somebody else gets the job, they can get the switchgear. You know what I mean? And kind of opens the door for us getting the contract is the goal, but it helps move the project along quickly.
Right. Now, so I want to understand then, because you're the owner of the company, obviously. You have, 16 people or so depending upon you. So how do you sleep at night when you've got those 16 families depending upon you and the project gets pushed back 6 months?
It's hard. We changed our business model a couple of times in the last 2 years, doing from the smaller projects to the larger projects, and then that escalated. Once the larger projects started, we were doing less small projects, so we were always busy. Now that it's a little slow and the scheduling's an issue, we're finding ourselves going back, doing more service work, going back, doing smaller projects. And the company's not making as much money, or if any, but the employees are staying fed. And that's our important part because they're our family. We need those people. We don't let people go, hire and fire. We want to keep them consistent throughout the year.
Yeah. So if you know you have a project coming up, right, and you're trying to find that balance, because when the project starts, it's going to be probably all hands on and it's going to be nonstop work, right? But leading up to that, scheduling issues or whatever, there's some downtime. So do you have them do things like ahead of time, maybe work in the shop and try to build like the assemblies and things like that, that when it's time to go on site to do like a condo complex or something like that, they've done some of the lead work already so that the time on the job is actually minimized?
If we can, we do. It's a hard thing to do because there's not a lot of stuff to prep work to do in the office. Most of the stuff is done in the field. You need the exact measurements and marks so you can cut and thread the conduits and install everything right. So what we'll do is we'll go there. We'll go to the project. Like there's one project that's on hold. It's 2 or 3 months behind. We went there and we did some preliminary work in the existing buildings, running conduit through the existing buildings, prepping for when they break ground and move to the second phase. Other than that, it's moving men around, trying to, take another job, trying to fill in the holes, smaller projects, fill in work, just whatever we could do to keep those guys going. We might take our commercial guy and put him on a small residential project, where he's still good at the job and he's going to do it properly, but it may take him a little bit longer than one of our residential guys. But we do it just to make sure, A, the client gets taken care of, and B, the employee stays working.
Yeah, that seems like it'd be really challenging, and it's impressive because I can imagine that there might be some other companies, whether it's in your direct industry or not, that aren't as concerned about those employees. They're just like, well, we don't have the business, you're not working, or I don't know how it works in other places, but to me, it sounds like you've got a great philosophy, and I'm not sure that everybody else does things the same way.
So when I was an apprentice and went through my whole first stage of my career, I was an apprentice and worked up to become a foreman, a lead man on a company. And the owner of the company, it was a big shop at the time. There was 120 guys, and it was a family company. Like he took care of everybody as a family, helped everybody, knew everybody on a personal name basis. Company parties and this and that. And he was always involved in the job and made sure we always had work and always were fed. I kind of tried to role model my company after his. Like I tried to follow his footprint and run it the same way on a much smaller scale. But I still feel like, if you have an employee, they're the heartbeat of the company. Like if you don't treat them right, you're not going to get your return on them. So you got to take care of them correctly. And you were them once, right? I was that apprentice once. Like, why would I treat them differently? I value them. I want them to grow. I want them to learn, and I want my trade to grow, even if it's not in my company. The trade has to grow because it's going to be out here forever. So we need the younger people to grow and learn and to run with it. So you treat them right and let them learn, and the industry will prosper.
Yeah, I mean, and that's great that's the philosophy, but the reality is also there's an economic aspect to treating people well too, because there's got to be costs associated with turnover in people and having to train them and all the things that go with that as well, I'd imagine, right?
There is. I mean, we've been pretty successful. I mean, for the most part, we've been pretty successful. We've had guys that have been here for 10, 12 years. One guy he left a couple of years ago. I actually helped him move to another company that's larger in the city. But we have people that stay here forever. They like being here. We treat them right. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's hard to keep the right person as long as you treat them right. I mean, when you meet somebody, whether it's in your personal life or outside or a business, whatever, you know, if you know what kind of person you are, you get a good feeling of a good vibe of what they want to do. If they're going to be successful, if they're going to be motivated enough to learn the trade and be involved in the trade. So you treat that person with respect and you give them everything they need to do the job. We make sure they have the materials, the tools, the knowledge, the drawings, the specs. We try and make it so there's no reason that job or that employee can fail on his job.
That's admirable. That's great. So now walk me through this. You said you started off doing, some side work, so to speak, and then you opened up the shops and you were still doing basic residential stuff, right? I mean, I used the example of the ceiling fan. You talked about outlets and so forth. Walk me through the progression of RFG in '98 to RFG in 2026, and some of the projects you've done along the way, and how you moved from level to level to level to get to where you are with some of your latest projects.
It's been a great roller coaster ride. It really has. I've had a lot of support behind me. It's definitely not just me. I've had everything. Obviously, my wife's been a tremendous help. My employees, my staff, my estimators. It's been great. And we did the small jobs, and it's a lot of hours, from getting up in the morning to physically doing a job, going home, doing the billing, the estimating at night, meeting the clients, going out. I remember driving in my van, pulling up to a job site, seeing a machine in the woods knocking down trees. I'd pull up and say, "Hey, are you the builder?" and hand him my business card. Going into houses, nailing my business cards on a new build. Hopefully the builder sees it and calls me. Putting ads in a penny saver. And you just, as you grow, you have to do less and less in that because your reputation grows.
Sure.
You meet the builder, you give them a fair price, you give them a high quality product, and you make sure that they meet their deadlines and you cater to them. A lot of the builders, like I said, one of the first builders I worked with is still my builder today. He's a good friend of mine. You make sure you do the best service, and you'll grow. We've done everything from, we do a lot of work for Eastern Long Island Hospital in Greenport, which is now owned by Stony Brook University. We've done just in East Patchogue recently for B2K development. We did 180 apartments. We do Northwind Construction. We did very large condominium complex for them. Now we just finished another housing development for them. Retail, we've done auto zones. We've done a little bit of everything. You just got to, we beat the bushes. I have like I said, I have a very good estimator, project manager, shop super, and they take care of their employees. They take care of the clients. We network with them. We do a lot of networking, and we just make sure that we give them a fair price. And we teach our men. We learn. We read books. I still go to classes. I still go to code classes. We're taking one in 2 weeks. It's, I'm 56 years old,
but
and
people
I enjoy
wouldn't
it.
think that, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but people wouldn't think that, at your point, your career, so forth, that's something you're still doing, but it's necessary, right? I mean, that's how you stay current. That's how you stay on top of things.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the codes and standards change every 3 years. I mean, there's a basic code and standard, and then they make some changes every 3 years. I have a good friend of mine who's an electrical contractor. He's like, I don't know how I can't make it. I mean, always got problems. Well, he hasn't opened the code book since he took his test. And he doesn't do the office work. He's busy doing other things. You get out what you put in, like anything else in life. You want to do it, you got to do 110%. And I still study. I still like going to classes, and I think it's, I also have kids that are adult kids, and I think, if I'm going to school, it shows them, okay, my old man's doing it, maybe I should do it too. So I think it's the right thing to do. It teaches people, by example. So I think it's the best thing to do.
Yeah.
You can never learn too much.
I agree. Lifelong learners. I mean, that's a common phrase you hear and so forth. But as far as the business goes and the way you've been able to develop it from where you started to where you got to, I think you touched on some important points there in terms of networking. I think in any field, your reputation is actually what's going to drive a lot of your business. People getting a referral from one person to another means a lot more than, just, whatever you did a search for online and came across the guy who's local or whatever. So I think it's great that you've managed to develop those relationships and maintain them, so to speak, so that, you're referring people to other folks, and other folks are referring people to you, and it's helping you both out.
Right. The negative, you do a job and doesn't come out properly. The negative publicity will outweigh 3 times the good publicity, in my opinion. So you have to do everything you can to make sure that that client is satisfied. And even if you're doing it to codes and standards and they don't understand it, they may be upset that they're not getting what they want. But legally, you can't give them what they want because it's not to code. So it becomes this battle, and you have to A, explain it the best way, and then B, sometimes you got to take a little hit, financially to make sure they're satisfied. It sucks, but it's whatever you got to do. It's the two things are client satisfaction and employees, like, in my opinion.
Yeah. The negativity or the negative reputation or comment or so forth. Yes, that could be devastating to a business. You could have hundreds of positive comments, but that one negative one is the one that people seem to lock onto. Just making a mental note here, I'm going to go back and I'm going to grab that clip because I think what you said is very important about, how important it is to avoid those negative comments and negative feedback and so on. All right, now you've been at this for 28 years, I guess, with RFG. So I guess at some point you've got to start thinking about, what's next, right? I mean, there are these venture capital groups coming into the trades lately. They're buying up the mom and pop shops. But for a guy like you, this isn't like just a spreadsheet. It's your name that's actually on the vans. So tell me, when you look at the future of RFG, do you want to hand the keys to a lifer in your crew, or is the plan to let a big firm take over?
Ideally, it would like to be one of my guys, one of my key figures that is here to grow with it. Like we talked about earlier, you start off as an apprentice and you work your way up, and you want to teach those young apprentices to grow and become master electricians, get their license, and then not only the future of the business, but the future of the company. They can come in, get their licenses, and take it over, and then I step out and little phase myself out over years and let them run with it. That would be the best scenario for me. I would like to see. And, you may be able to get more from a venture capital group, but to me, you want to see the company grow. You want to see your employees grow. Like, those are the two keys that I would like to see keep going. So if I could have one of my key members run with it, that would be the best case scenario.
Sure. But now, is there like one thing or a few things that you'd have to see in whoever this successor is going to be to know that, they're not going to ruin what you've spent so many years building up?
Well, I mean, obviously they have to have the same belief as I would have. Customer satisfaction, employees, retention, and making sure that's taken care of it, and make sure they believe in giving good service, because there's a lot of guys that are just fly by night, and you want to make sure that it's done properly. If they have the same beliefs I do, and that would be the ultimate in my opinion.
Okay. So now, before I let you go, I want to do some quick hits here, real quick questions here. What's the weirdest thing you've ever found inside a wall?
So that's a tricky one. I found a piece of beef.
Piece of beef?
And I ended up knowing the guy that did it. He wasn't paid by the client, so he sheetrocked. He took something out of their freezer and put it in. People are crazy. People are crazy. We've also found some money in some places that you wouldn't expect. Then we call a homeowner over and you got some money hidden here.
I have to tell you, as I was asking you that question, beef was absolutely nowhere on my radar for what the response to that question was going to be.
It was a long time ago. Yeah. The contractor didn't get paid, so he took something out of their freezer and threw it in the wall and sheetrocked it up. I'm like,
wow. Note to self: don't piss off the sheetrocker. Right? That's the guy.
Exactly.
The last guy you want to piss off on the job.
I guess.
All right. So if you could tell a 20-year-old one thing about their career today, what is it?
Study, understand all the ins and outs, and know exactly what you're doing. Know the trade in and out, through and through. Know your codes, learn, and never stop learning.
Great advice. Great advice. So last one here. If we forget everything else that we talked about today, what's the one thing people need to know about RFG Electrical?
So there'll be, no matter what happens, the job will get done. The job will get done 100% correctly, because my team goes over and above and does everything 100% correct.
Well, that's great. Rich, this has been an absolute blast. Thanks for keeping the lights on, literally, and for showing us what the real ROI looks like. If you guys want to see what a professional operation looks like, go to rfgelectric.com. Connect with Rich on LinkedIn. He's the real deal. I'm Scott Fisher for Business Nexus Media. Keep building, keep scaling, and maybe think twice before you sign for that student loan. We'll see you next time.